Ladies and gentlemen, you are now the jury in this case, and I'll take a few minutes to tell you something about your duties as jurors and give you some instructions. At the end of the trial, I will give you more detailed instructions on the law, and those instructions will control your deliberations. The criminal case has been brought by the state of South Carolina, and I will sometimes refer to the state as the prosecution. The state is represented in this trial by Solicitor Walter Wilkins and Jake Hofert. The defendant is represented by his attorneys, Mark Moyer and Andrew Moorman. The defendant has been charged by the state with murder, possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime, burglary first degree, harassment, and conspiracy. The charges against Zachary David Hughes are contained in the respective indictments. The indictment is simply the description of the charges against Zachary David Hughes. It is not evidence of anything. The defendant has pled not guilty to these charges and denies committing the crime. He is presumed innocent and may not be found guilty by you unless all of you unanimously find that the state has proven his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. South Carolina law makes the jury the finder of facts. You 12 alone are the finders of facts, and it will be your duty to decide from the evidence what the facts are. You will hear the evidence, decide what the facts are, and then apply those facts to the law I give you at the close of this case. That is how you will reach your verdict. In doing so, you must follow that law, whether you agree with it or not. The evidence will consist of the testimony of witnesses, documents, and other items received into evidence as exhibits, and any facts on which the lawyers agree or stipulate. The same law that makes you 12 the finder of the facts makes me the judge of the law, and our rules of evidence control what can be received into evidence. When a lawyer asks a question or offers an exhibit into evidence and a lawyer on the other side thinks it's not permitted by the rules of evidence, that lawyer may object, and that simply means that the lawyer is requesting that I make a decision on a particular rule of evidence. South Carolina law forbids a trial judge from making a comment to a jury about a fact in a case. Therefore, because it may be necessary for me to comment on a fact in applying our rules of evidence, it may be necessary for me to talk with the lawyers out of your hearing by having a bench conference while you are present in the courtroom or by excusing you from the courtroom. The purposes of these conferences is to decide how certain evidence is to be treated under the rules of evidence and to avoid confusion and error. I ask you, be patient during these breaks. Certain things are not in evidence. Statements, arguments, questions, and comments by lawyers representing the parties in the case are not evidence. Objections are not evidence. Lawyers have a duty to their clients to object when they believe something is improper under the rules of evidence. You should not be influenced by the objection. If I sustain an objection, you must ignore the question or exhibit and must not try to guess what the answer might have been or the exhibit might have contained. If I overrule the objection, the evidence will be admitted, but do not give it special attention because of the objection. Testimony that I strike from the record or tell you to disregard is not evidence and must not be considered. Anything you see or hear about this case outside this courtroom is not evidence unless I specifically tell you otherwise during the trial. Finally, some of you may have heard the terms direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. Direct evidence is testimony by a witness about what the witness personally saw, heard, or did. Circumstantial evidence is indirect evidence, that is, it is proof of one or more facts from which one can find or infer another fact. You may consider both direct and circumstantial evidence. The law permits you to give equal weight to both, but it is for you to decide how much weight to give to any evidence. In deciding what the facts are, you may have to decide what testimony you believe and what testimony you do not believe. You may believe everything a witness says or only part of it or none of it. In deciding what to believe, you may consider a number of factors, including the following: the witness's ability to see or hear or know the things the witness testifies to, the quality of the witness's memory, the witness's manner while testifying, whether the witness has an interest in the outcome of the case or any motive, bias, or prejudice, whether the witness is contradicted by anything the witness said or wrote before trial or by other evidence. And lastly, how reasonable the witness's testimony is when considered in light of other evidence which you believe. It is my responsibility to rule as a matter of law as to whether certain testimony is admissible. But once the testimony is admitted, whether or not you believe it is solely for you to determine. To ensure fairness, you as jurors must not talk among yourselves about this case or about anyone involved with it until the end of the case when you go to the jury room to decide your verdict. Do not talk with anyone else about this case or about anyone who has anything to do with it until the trial is ended and you have been discharged as jurors. Anyone includes members of your family and your friends. You may tell them that you're a juror, but do not tell them anything about the case or discuss it until after you have been discharged as a juror. Do not let anyone talk to you about the case or about anyone who has anything to do with it. If someone should try to talk to you, please report it to me immediately. During the trial, do not talk with or speak to any of the parties, lawyers, or witnesses involved in this case. You should not even pass the time of day with any of them. It is important not only that you do justice in this case, but that you also give the appearance of doing justice. If a person from one side of the case sees you talking to a person from the other side, even if it is simply to pass the time of day, an unwarranted and unnecessary suspicion about your fairness might be aroused. If any lawyer, party, or witness does not speak to you when you pass in the hall, ride, the elevator, or the like, it is because they are not supposed to talk to you or visit with you pursuant to my instructions. Do not read any news stories or articles, watch TV about this case or about anyone involved with it, or listen to any radio or television reports, podcast, anything of the like about this case, any social media, or about anyone involved with it. Do not do any research on the internet about anything in the case or consult blogs or dictionaries or other reference materials, and do not make any investigation about this case on your own. This is your duty as the jurors in this case. Do not make up your mind about what the verdict should be until after you have gone to the jury room to discuss this case with your fellow jurors. Keep an open mind until then. I'm often asked about note-taking. You are not able to take notes during the trial of this case, and the reason is that I want you to pay close attention to each witness as he or she testifies and not be fixated on taking copious notes. The first step in the trial will be the opening statements. The state in its opening statement will tell you about the evidence that it intends to put before you so that you will have an idea of what the state's case is going to be. Just as the indictment is not evidence, neither is the opening statement evidence. Its purpose is only to help you understand what the evidence will be and what the state will try to prove, and after the state's opening statements, defendant's attorney may, if he chooses, make an opening statement, and at this point in the trial, no evidence has been offered by either side. Next, the state will offer evidence that it says will support the charges against the defendant. The state's evidence in this case will consist of the testimony of witnesses and may include documents and other exhibits. I remind you that the defendant is presumed innocent, and the state must prove the guilt of the defendant beyond a reasonable doubt, and the defendant does not have to prove his innocence. After you have heard all the evidence on both sides, the state and the defense will each be given time for their final arguments. I just told you that the opening statement by the lawyers are not evidence, and the same applies to the closing arguments. They are not evidence. In their closing arguments, the lawyers for each side will attempt to summarize and help you understand the evidence that was presented. The final part of the trial occurs when I instruct you about the rules of law that you are to use in reaching your verdict. After hearing my instructions, you will leave the courtroom together to make your decisions. I will inform you when you can begin deliberating. It is your added duty, Ms. Foreperson, to preside in the jury room and be the jury spokesperson here in court. It will also be your duty to write the verdict, but I will give you further instructions about that at the conclusion of the case. We will now begin the trial. State.
Your Honor, may it please the court.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Walt Wilkins, and myself, along with Jake Hofreth, we are the prosecutors in this case. This is Detective Jared Sparkman and Master Deputy Blake Wolf. They're the co-lead investigators in this case. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for giving us the opportunity to present this case to you. The state has the obligation to prove the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the standard that you're going to hear from the judge, you're going to hear throughout your deliberations and throughout this trial. We have to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And there's a lot of folks in this courtroom right here that you see. And so we are the prosecution. We represent the state. We have the honor of representing the state in this particular case. The defendant sits over there. That is Zachary Hughes along with his attorneys, and they represent him in this particular case. But there's many more other individuals in this case. We have the court reporter. She's very important. She is taking down everything that we're saying, recorded, so we can have a record of this entire case at its conclusion. And so that's what she'll be doing, and she'll also be marking exhibits. So if you see her over there writing on things, that's what she's doing. She's marking the exhibits in which we will identify things that we will be presenting to you for your review. This is Madam Clerk. She's involved with a lot of paperwork and handles all the evidence that we submit into the court. So she'll be handling all the exhibits that you will get to review upon your deliberation. And of course, we have the judge up here. And if you'll notice, the judge is a pretty important person. He's got a black robe. He gets to sit a little higher than the rest of us. And there's a reason for that, because he is the referee in this case. And he's going to be calling balls and strikes. He's going to be telling us what the law is. And when one of the parties has an objection, he's going to say whether you're right or whether you're wrong. And because there are rules in this courtroom, ladies and gentlemen, the rules are officiated by the judge to make sure that we maintain the rules and decorum in this courtroom and the evidence is presented to you in the proper way. But the most important people in this room, ladies and gentlemen, are you. As the judge said, you're the triers of fact. You decide what the facts are. And the great thing about serving as a juror is that you don't leave your common sense at the door. You get to bring it with you in here. And you get to listen to the testimony that'll come right from this chair right here. And you get to look at the evidence that's presented in your deliberations. And you can see it along the way of how this case progresses. You'll hear different kinds of evidence, as the judge said. You'll hear direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. They're both very powerful pieces of evidence. They can be used in any way in which you accept them. Direct evidence is simple. It's something that somebody can see, taste, or smell, something that they see. If you see somebody commit a violent crime, that's direct evidence that they saw that person there. Circumstantial evidence could be just as powerful. For example, if you look outside before you go to bed and you see your lawn nice and green, and you wake up and it's covered in snow and there are footprints walking through the snow, well, you know that somebody walked through your yard from the time you went to bed and the time you woke up. You don't know who it is, but you know somebody did because you can see footprints. You can derive information from that to form a logical conclusion. Another good example of circumstantial evidence is DNA evidence. If you have DNA in a certain location, you can derive that that person was at that location at that particular time. Even though no one may be testified that they actually saw him there, but the DNA shows that he was or she was there at a particular time. It's very powerful circumstantial evidence. So, ladies and gentlemen, this case is about the murder of Christina Parcell. And the state intends to prove that Zachary Hughes did in fact murder Christina Parcell. And you have a number of charges that you're going to be deliberating on. You have harassment charges, you have a burglary first degree charge, and you have a murder charge. Harassment is basically doing something that would intrude into the personal life of somebody, causing mental anguish. Burglary first degree means you went into somebody's home for the purpose of committing a violent crime. And then, of course, murder is an angry heart. We have to show that Zach Hughes had an angry heart. He was mad. And you can derive that information from any of the testimony, any of the evidence that we have that we present to you. So in this case, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear about a number of characters. The main character is Christina Parcell. She was murdered on October 13th, 2021. And she was living in the Canebrake neighborhood with her sister, Tina Parcell, and Christina's daughter, Aida Mello. They were living in that neighborhood in a house in Canebrake, and Christina Parcell had been going through a very tremendous child custody dispute with John Mello since Aida was 3 years old. At the time, Aida was 9. For almost 6 years, they had been battling custody over Aida Mello. And that custody dispute raised to a certain level beginning in October of 2020 when John Mello and Aida Mello went to Italy. And John took Aida Mello to Italy, and Christina fought to get her back. And in April of 2021, Christina obtained Aida's custody. And they came back from Italy, and that's how they ended up living in the Canebrake neighborhood. So the question is, how did Zach Hughes become involved in this case? Well, Zach Hughes had a relationship with John Mello starting in about October of 2020, around the time when he left for Italy. And that relationship grew. And it grew to the point where Zach Hughes began inserting himself into this custody battle at the behest of John Mello. And they began doing things like sending photos of her to the neighbors in an effort to shame her, an effort to show that she's a bad mother. And as the custody dispute it elevated into a situation where custody might not go in John Mello's favor. And at that point, Zach Hughes made the ultimate decision. Ladies and gentlemen, I hold in my hand the indictments from the grand jury charging Zach Hughes with harassment and burglary first and murder. And the grand jury, true bill of these cases, they came out, and these are the charging documents. And while the defendant at this point in this case is certainly clothed in innocence, once you hear the evidence from that chair, you hear the evidence that's presented to you, you're going to find beyond a reasonable doubt, and the evidence will show that Zach Hughes is a cold-blooded killer. And he committed murder, he committed harassment, and he committed burglary first. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court, the defense is going to defer opening until our case. Thank you.
Which is your right. Stay. All right, Your Honor. The state calls Sarah Young.
Left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Please be seated. Please state your name for the record.
Sarah Young,
Ms. Young, with whom are you employed?
the Greenville County Sheriff's Office.
And what do you do for the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
I'm the 911 tape research analyst.
All right, and what is a 911 tape research analyst?
Essentially, we pull 911 calls for the solicitor's office and the officers.
And so how does 911 operate?
Essentially, when a 911 call comes into dispatch, dispatch determines whether or not which agency the caller is needing. So whether or not they need police, fire, EMS, they'll get information from the caller, and they'll transfer them to the proper agency.
And are the calls recorded?
Yes.
And when do they begin recording the call?
Automatically. As soon as someone calls in a 911, it automatically starts recording.
So while it's ringing on, say, the caller's side, it's recording on your side?
Yes, sir.
Is that fair? And do y'all maintain all of those records?
Yes, sir.
Inside the 911 office?
Yes, sir.
And are those records kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 7 and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, sir, I do.
Are those your initials on there?
Yes, sir.
All right. And what is this?
That is a recording of the 911 call.
All All right. I'm referring, is this a recording of a 911 call on October 13th, 2021?
Yes, sir.
And you have your records up there?
Yes, sir.
To help you remember?
Yes, sir.
It was a long time ago, wasn't it?
That it was.
Do you know about what time this call came in?
The call came in at 11 a.m.
At 11 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
And do you know what number called it?
Yes, sir.
What number called it?
The number we have recorded is 864-436-2499.
And do you know who was calling? Does it tell you?
The caller did not give his name.
Caller did not give his name.
No.
And do you know what address that it was? He was calling for.
Yes, sir. The address provided was 122 Canebrake Drive.
Okay. Do you know if that's in Greenville County?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, State moves Exhibit 7 into evidence.
We have no objection, Your Honor.
Without objection, states number 7 comes into evidence.
Now, the State would like to publish it.
Emergency. 122 Canebrake Drive. NJ Police Fire EMS. I'm sorry? I think I might have a death. Okay, let me connect you. I walked in my fiance's house. She wouldn't answer my call. There's a very weird smell, and I can't get her to come around. Okay, let me. Laid all over the floor. Let me connect you to EMS, sir. Hold on just a moment. All right. Fire. What's the address of the emergency? 122 Canebrake Drive. 122 Canebrake Drive. And what's another street? Your Canebrake Drive? I don't know. Southeast Drive. Okay. In Greer? Yes. All right. The phone number you're calling. I'm sorry? The phone number you're calling from? 864-436-2499. 864-436-2499. And has anyone tested positive for COVID-19 or been exposed to COVID-19 positive? No. No, it's actually a assessment. I just walked in, I can't reach my fiance, I came in the back door, she couldn't have been here. I smelled some weird smell, and it she flat out on the floor. Okay, you smell a weird smell, and she's flat on the floor? Yes. Okay, just one moment. Is she breathing? No. Okay, then we need to get her, turn her over, make sure she's flat on her back, nothing under her neck. Do you have something to put over her nose and mouth? And we're going to start CPR, sir. Okay, I think she's gone. You think she's gone? Yeah. Okay. And what makes you think she's gone? You want to put in the CPR? I'm sorry? What do I do? I don't want to... Well, we're going to put her flat on her back, and then I'm going to walk you through the steps to do that. If you think that she's able to do the CPR, then we can. I have no problem walking you through that. It looks like there's brain matter everywhere. There's brain matter everywhere? It looks like somebody shot me back. Somebody had shot her? Okay. All right. All right. Do you think that she's not viable? I don't think so. Okay. So tell me why you think she's dead. So she won't respond. She won't respond. Eyes are open. Okay. All right. There's a lot of blood. And a lot of blood. Okay. Yeah, anyway, the flowers, like somebody must have come here. Uh-huh. And sunglasses were knocked off, it looks like in the hallway. Okay. But the smell is very... Okay. All right, give me just a moment here, sir. Give me just a moment. So it looks like somebody may have broke in and shot her in the head. Me? I don't know. Okay, I understand. Okay. I'm sorry, say it again. I've got some people coming, sir. Do you see anybody still nearby, an assailant or anything? No? No. Okay. All right. The front door was locked? Okay.
After the moment, I'm like, I walked down, she didn't respond to my call.
Yes.
So I came over, and then I came about, I smelled this weird smell.
Right.
And I walked in, I could see there's like a raised floor.
Yes. Okay. I have everybody coming. I'm sending the paramedics to help now. Stay on the line. I'll say exactly what to do next. Make sure to not move anything. Leave everything as it is.
Yes.
And if you can, go ahead and step out of the house, and that way, wait for the paramedics and the police at the front of the house.
I'll have to send her back out the back door.
Yeah, I would go back out the way you came to, keep the scene as it is.
Yes.
And then if they want to go through the front when they get there, then they'll let you know. But I'd go back out the same way that you came in
Okay.
and leave everything as you found it.
Yeah, I think it's gonna, I don't think it's gonna come out. I'm gonna leave it on.
Yeah, it's okay. Leave it. Just however it is right now. Just walk out and you can let them know you didn't know if you turned it on or off, but just leave it as it is right this moment.
The same thing, really, really good smell.
Oh, really
Almost
weird.
like this. Yeah, almost, chemical.
Like a gas or a chemical? More like a gas smell?
No, it's more like something with just a pesticide.
A pesticide smell? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead and get out the door and go to the front and wait for them at the front of the house. Leave everything as it is. Is there anything else that I can do for you, sir?
No,
All right. I've got them all coming.
no.
All right. Thank you. Sir, this is the sheriff's office.
Is that the recording of your tree from 911?
Yes, sir.
Answer any questions defense counsel may have.
Cross-examination.
No question, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Young, you step in.
Your Honor, we'd ask the witness to be excused.
May you be excused. Okay.
Your Honor, the state would call Deputy Chris Robinson.
Please state your name for the record.
Chris Robinson,
And with whom are you employed?
Greenwood County Sheriff's Office,
And what is your current rank?
Master Deputy.
The Master Deputy. And what do you do for the Greenville County Sheriff's Office?
Currently on uniform patrol.
And what does that entail?
Answer your day-to-day calls, 911 calls.
How long have you been with the department?
10 years.
I'm going to refer you back to October 13th of 2021. Do you remember getting a call to the Canebrake neighborhood?
I do.
Okay. How did you get that call?
It was just a call for service at the time. Someone called 911 and I responded to that address.
Where were you located when you got that call?
Pelham Road at the QT.
How far away is that to the Canebrake?
A couple miles, maybe.
How long did it take you to get there?
Just a few minutes.
Now, did you go with your blue lights on, or did you
Absolutely. Just for the nature of the call, yeah, we responded, lights and siren.
So what address did you arrive to? Do you remember?
I'm not 100% the exact-
122 Canebrake?
That would be it, yes, sir.
And so what happened when you got there?
So once I arrived on scene, I made contact with the complainant, Mr. Post. He was standing in the driveway. I was kind of briefly spoke to him, tried to figure out kind of what was going on. He told me that he arrived home or arrived to the victim's address when she wasn't answering her phone. So he said he went in the back door, it was unlocked, and that's where he located her. So at that point, another deputy arrived on scene. So we decided to go in there and clear. We went in the back door. He said it was unlocked. They always leave it unlocked, so that's the way we made entry. Went inside immediately. As soon as we got inside, immediately smelled some kind of chemical odor. It was kind of unusual. We weren't 100% sure what it was. I could never figure it out, but we cleared the residence. I located Miss Parcell in the living room. There was blood all over the floor. Looked like there was drag marks on the floor where she was had been drugged by her feet or drugged somehow. She had multiple lacerations around her upper, her face, her neck area.
All right, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to take you back a little bit now. When you get out of your car, did you walk down the driveway?
Yes, sir.
And what cars were parked there?
There were 2 cars in the driveway. They were kind of parked one behind the other. One, I think it was a Mercedes, was the back one. Not remember which one the first one was.
And where did you encounter Mr. Post?
He was in front of the first car closest to the house.
And then that's where did you obtain some information from him about what was going on?
Correct. Just like I said, the basic information about, or he came home and he couldn't get her on the phone, so that's why he showed up.
And so your next item to do was to clear the house.
Correct.
And did you do that alone, or do you?
No, Master Deputy Brookshire was there. He went inside with me. We did it together because we didn't know what was inside or who else was inside.
So at that point, you have no idea what you're walking into.
Correct.
Is that standard procedure to have 2 individuals clear the house?
Yes, sir.
And did y'all in fact go and clear the house in this case?
We did. We cleared the entire house. Didn't find anyone else inside besides Ms. Parcell.
Were you wearing a body camera?
I was.
And was it functioning properly?
Correct.
That day?
It was.
Have you reviewed that body camera?
I have.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit A and see if you recognize that.
Yes, sir. That has my body camera on it. I signed it there.
Those your initials right there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, is this your body camera that you were wearing that day?
Yes, sir.
When you made a call to 122 Cambridge?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, State moves Exhibit 8 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit A comes in evidence.
All right. Master Deputy, I'm going to show you this body camera, and we can start and stop it. I want you to kind of walk us through what you're doing and what you see as you're going through and you're clearing the scene with Officer Brookshire.
Yes.
So what is that there?
That's us arriving on scene, or me arriving on scene, to 122 Cambridge.
All right, and so is that the first time you saw this location?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And are those the 2 cars right there that you can see the silver one in the front?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And there was a red one behind it, I believe. All right. And is that where you encountered Mr. Post?
Yes, sir, initially.
And what is Mr. Post doing?
He was making a phone call. I'm not sure exactly who he was on the phone with, and we're just I'm getting basic information from him, kind of figured out what was going on, kind of what he saw, and what.
Are you gathering information from Mr. Post?
Yeah, just basic information. Try to figure out exactly what we have.
Now you have audio on your body camera, don't you?
Yes, sir.
All right. We're not playing the audio for these purposes.
Okay. So yeah, just basic information, trying to figure out, when was the last time he talked to her, things like that. I could see that he was, dressed nicely. He wasn't. There's nothing on him like where there's been a struggle or anything like that too. So he didn't seem like he was in a hurry. So it seemed like she was deceased, just according to his body language, if that makes sense.
And so where are you going down here? The side of the house?
Yes, sir. He pointed us to the back. This is the back door. He said that that was always unlocked, and that's where he made entry. So this is where we decided to go because we knew that this door was more than likely unlocked. We had good access to the house.
So is this your first entry into the house?
Yes, sir.
Now, did Mr. Post tell you which door he entered into the house?
He did. He said he come in the back door because he said they always kept it unlocked. So, and that was the door that we decided to make.
So the door being open right there was not concerning to you?
No, because he already said he was already in it. He had already been through, and that's where he went in. So I'm just talking to Master Deputy Brookshire here. We're just kind of talking back and forth about what we see inside the house, kind of what each other is going to do, kind of your primary job responsibility, and that's all standard.
And in clearing the house, what is the purpose of clearing the house?
One, to secure any kind of evidence, and also to make sure there's no one else inside, maybe no other victims or the suspect as well.
So where is Deputy Brookshire?
He's to my right. He's holding on. There's a hallway on the right side of the house.
So where did you just see right there?
Miss Parcell's body.
Okay, so that was the room where you found Christina Parcell?
Correct, in the front living room area.
And y'all continue to search the house for any suspects?
Yes, sir. We're just continuing to clear. I had him hold the hallway, and I kind of just moved up and cleared kind of behind him, up to him, and then we started clearing the bedrooms down the hallway. We're just sitting there just kind of talking our way through this, kind of, hey, what do you see?
And are you conscious not to disturb any part of the crime scene as well, as best you can?
Correct. Try not to touch anything. Obviously, opening the doors or whatnot, we kind of have to push them open. But we're not kind of rummaging through anything or opening any drawers, or we're just looking for humans at this point, so the big areas where somebody could hide.
Just continue to clear the house.
Yes, sir. I believe that was the last bedroom that we cleared at that point. I believe I come out and we secure the house so nobody goes in or out.
Now, are you corresponding with other officers outside the house as well about what's going on? Are you reporting back to anybody?
Talking on the radio, just kind of letting them know what we have at this point, getting a supervisor on the way. They always respond to these kind of incidents.
And is that the front door right there to your right?
Yes, sir.
That's not the door you entered into?
No, sir. That's the front door to the residence that leads into the front living room area that Ms. Parcell was located in. At this point, I'm just checking to make sure there's no signs of life. If we needed to render any kind of medical aid. Looking for any kind of weapons to make sure it wouldn't, she did it to harm herself too.
And then now are y'all exiting
The back door.
the back door? So it's about. So did you cut your body camera off about that time? Let me ask you this. That's about when you finished clearing the house.
Correct.
All right. Your body camera still continues to operate.
Correct.
Do you remember what you did after you cleared the house?
Went back and talked to Mr. Post, got some basic information, names, kind of the last time he spoke with her, things like that. And just waited on everybody else to show up.
Did y'all begin putting crime scene tape up?
Yes, sir.
Those
Just
kind of things?
yes, sir. Just locking down the house, making sure nobody goes in or out, just to keep the crime scene preserved the best we could.
And as far as Mr. Post is concerned, did he appear to have any blood on him, anything like that?
No, he was dressed pretty nicely that day. Sports coat, nice slacks.
You'll just answer any questions. Thanks, Councilman.
All right, cross-examination.
Yeah, please, the court. Just curious, Deputy Robinson, at the time this happened, were you a master deputy?
I was.
You talked a little bit about some of the comments Mr. Post made to you after you arrived on scene. You testified to that in direct examination. I want to talk about some of those comments. Master Deputy Robinson, isn't it true that roughly about a minute, 25 seconds in to your body camera, Mr. Post told you that he was there every day, or practically every day?
Objection, hearsay.
Your Honor, he's moved in the body camera. There was no exception as it relates to the audio. The whole video and audio is in.
Overruled. You can ask that.
So, if I remember correctly, yeah. I mean, he says he's there often.
Isn't it true that roughly at about 12 minutes and 45 seconds in, somewhere in there, Mr. Post told you that he did not at that point feel comfortable continuing to talk to you? Do you remember that?
I do when I was asking questions.
And isn't it true that while you were talking to him, he directed you to another deputy, a Deputy Dan Bevel, who might know more about the situation? Is that true? Do you remember that? At about 13 minutes and 35 seconds in, roughly?
I believe that was with a different case.
But while you were there that day, isn't it true that Mr. Post directed you to Deputy Bevel as someone who might know more about this case? Is that true?
Not about this direct case, but I guess he's been involved with the victim before.
At some point, was Mr. Post placed in the back of a patrol car that day?
He was. He was the first one to find her, so standard procedure just to kind of detain him until investigators could arrive and speak with him.
And at the time, isn't it true that well, strike that. 1 second here. I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you. Can you redirect?
No redirection.
Thank you.
About the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Bradley Post.
Good afternoon, Mr. Post. Where do you currently reside?
Greenville County Detention Center.
And have you been charged with a crime?
Yes.
Do you know the victim in this case, Christina Parcell?
Yes.
How do you know her?
We dated and were engaged on and off about 6 years.
And about when did y'all start dating?
2016.
And in 2016, where were y'all living?
I was living at my house in Rivoli Lane. She was living in her house or apartment. I don't remember what she had at the time.
Were you aware of a child custody dispute between Christina Parcell and John Mello?
Yes.
And was this custody dispute ongoing from 2016 up until 2021?
Yes.
And how were you involved in the child custody dispute?
I would listen to her talk. Sometimes I'd assist her to go to an attorney, whatever, but, she'd just tell me about what it was.
Was it contentious?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Was there a lot going on in it?
Yes.
Was John Mello fighting very hard from his perspective?
Yes.
And Christina was fighting as well?
Yes.
Now, do you know where Christina was living on October 13th, 2021?
On Canebrake Drive.
Is that 122 Canebrake?
Yes.
And do you know who was living at that house at that time?
Yes.
Who was living there?
Her sister and her daughter and her.
Okay, what is her sister's name?
Tina.
Tina Parcell?
Yes.
And did you have the occasion to go to that house?
Yes.
And would Christina Parcell go to your house on Rivoli Lane?
Yes, sometimes.
And what kind of car was Christina driving at that time?
Lexus.
And who owned that car?
It was mine.
All right. And did you offer her to be able to drive that car?
Yes.
And did Christina Parcell have a cell phone?
Yes.
And did you assist her with the payments on that cell phone?
She had actually 2 cell phones. She had her own sometimes and mine also. But yes.
Did y'all communicate
Yes.
between those 2 phones? Do you know about when Christina moved to Canebrake?
I would have to think about it. I'm thinking maybe April, May, somewhere in that time frame.
And did you have the occasion, as part of the child custody dispute, did Christina Parcell have to go to Italy?
Yes.
And do you know the circumstances surrounding why she would have to go to Italy to get her
Yes.
child? Can you tell the jury what your understanding of those circumstances were?
Mr. Mello kidnapped the daughter and left the country.
And do you know about when that was? And if you can't remember, it's not.
It was probably 6 months before April,
Okay.
whatever that works out to be.
Okay. And as a result of that, what did Christina do when Aida moved to Italy with John Mello?
She found out where he was located. She contacted her congressman and the State Department and the FBI.
And did she attempt to attain the return of Aida back to the United States?
Yes.
How did she do that?
Through the State Department. I think it was the Hague Agreement.
And did Christina actually fly over to Italy?
Yes.
Do you know how many times?
Twice.
And were you assisting her and helping her throughout this process?
What do you mean?
Financially, were you helping her?
Some, but she was receiving contributions and reimbursements from those organizations that help women like that.
Women obtain the return of their children who've been
That's correct.
taken abroad?
Yes.
And so did you emotionally support her? Are you involved? Did she tell you what's going on?
Yes.
And so do you remember did Christina ever get the return of her daughter?
Yes.
Do you remember when that was?
April, May time frame of the year.
Of 2021?
Yes.
I'm going to take you back to October 13th of 2021. Do you remember that day?
I do.
Can you tell us what you did that day, starting in the morning?
Well, she had a job interview, and
She is Christina Parcell?
Yes, Christina Parcell had a job interview. Typically, when she had something critical, I would call and try to make sure she was up. and she was. And then when she was driving to the interview, she called me and we talked for a while. And then she was a couple minutes from her interview, and so she hung up.
As far as you know, did she go to that interview?
Yes.
And then when she was at that interview, what did you do?
Generic things, common things around the house. Had to clean up and do laundry and dishes and things like that.
And then did you ever attempt to contact Christina?
Yes.
About when did you attempt to try and contact her?
I think it's around 11 o'clock, plus or minus somewhere in there.
And so how did you do that?
By phone?
And were you successful?
No.
So as a result of your unsuccessful attempt to contact her, what'd you do?
I thought I should probably go over and see how she's doing.
And did you do that?
I did.
How did you get there?
I drove my car,
What kind of car did you drive?
Mercedes.
Is it red?
Yes.
When you drove over there, where did you park it?
In their driveway.
And when you arrived to 122 Canebrake, what did you do?
I went to the front door and rang the doorbell.
And were you able to enter?
No, she didn't answer.
So then what did you do?
I walked around the back door because frequently they'd leave the back door unlocked, and I walked into the back door.
This jury just saw the body camera of Chris Robinson. Did you see him go in the house?
See who?
Deputy Chris Robinson, the officer who you spoke to, the first person you spoke to on scene.
I may have, but I don't recall who he was because there were several people
And
there.
the door that he used, was it the door that you used to enter? Do you know what door he used?
I think they went to the front door. No, they might have gone to the back door. That's right.
And is that the door that you used to enter
Yes,
the house?
yes.
So you did enter the house?
Right. Again, I'm not sure whether it was the front door or the back door that they entered.
And so what did you do when you walked inside the house?
It was dark, quiet, and so I walked back to down the hallway to see if she was in the bathroom or the shower, and it was all dark. And I looked on the floor, and right at the entrance of the living room and off that hallway there were petals from like a rose. And as I looked into the room, and I saw her on her back.
And when you saw her on her back, was there a lot of blood around the room?
Yes.
What did you do?
I walked over and yelled at her and then called 911.
And when you called 911, what were you requesting?
I told them who I was and where I was, and we needed, I guess, an ambulance or and the police assistance.
At this time, on October 13th, did you know where John Nola was located?
I assumed he was in Italy.
All right. Mr. Post, I'm going to show you some envelopes. I'm going to refer you sort of back to around June of that same year, 2021. And I'm going to show you some envelopes and ask you if you recognize these envelopes. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to start with Exhibit 1. I want to make sure the jury can hear me, okay?
Yes.
I'm going to stand this way. I'm going to start with Exhibit 1. And do you recognize that document?
Yes.
Okay. Tell this jury about how you came in contact with this document.
It was mailed to me.
Say it again. I think
It was mailed to me.
Okay. And is your name on it?
Yes.
And the return address is a P.O. box. Whose P.O. box is that?
It's also my P.O. box.
And when about was it mailed to you?
June 30th? June 30th.
Okay. Did you receive other envelopes as well?
Yes.
Okay. Tell this jury about how that happened.
Be a little more specific.
So tell this jury you received an envelope. What did you do once you received it, and did you receive other envelopes? Question.
I received the envelope. I opened it because it was very suspicious, with my return address. And I looked at it, and then I called my attorney.
Why did you call your attorney?
Because of the contents inside.
Can you describe the contents?
Yes, there were naked pictures of Miss Parcell, and if I remember right, there was a mailing list of which would kind of indicate that they were going to be sent also to those locations.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 2. Is that a similar envelope as well?
Yes.
And did you open all these envelopes?
No, I did not.
On State's Exhibit 2, what is the address that it was mailed to?
It was mailed to me, but my name was misspelled.
And then I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 3. Another envelope.
Yes.
And is it a similar envelope to the other ones that you received?
Yes.
And what is the address on that?
I'm 24, it's 25, it was my neighbor's.
So 25 is your neighbor's house?
Yes.
I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 4. Do you recognize that envelope?
Yes.
Where was that envelope?
It was sent to an establishment that I spent a lot of time with.
And what is the return address on there?
It's mine.
How did you obtain this one if it was sent to another establishment?
I had known since the very first one that others may be sent to people. And so since I knew the owner very well, I told him that he may be receiving an envelope with those dimensions. And I said, if he does, I'd appreciate a call back.
And State's Exhibit 5? Is that another envelope?
Yes.
And what is the address there?
My address.
And the return address is?
My P.O. box.
And State's Exhibit 6?
Yes.
What address is that one?
It's 22, which is another neighbor.
So after you received and collected all of these envelopes, what did you do with them?
I talked to my attorney, and we set up a meeting.
All right. And after you talked to your attorney and set up a meeting, what did he suggest y'all do?
That we would meet with the county investigator, we did with Mr. Bevel, and also to talk to the post office since they were sent through the mail.
And did you in fact have that meeting with law enforcement?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of that meeting?
It was to give them what we call evidence, or the things that we were sent, and ask them what we should do next.
And were you in essence filing a complaint with law enforcement for a potential crime?
I don't understand the question.
Were you going to law enforcement in an effort to give them evidence of a potential crime?
Yes.
And when you're meeting with law enforcement, you say Detective Daniel Bevel and Mike Nicholson with the Postal Inspector's Office. Did you tell them how you obtained these items?
Yes.
And did you discuss who you thought might send them?
Yes.
And who did you tell law enforcement that might send these photos or had possession of these photos?
Well, we thought we knew who, of course, was behind them, but we weren't sure who sent them because he was supposedly out of the country.
So who did you tell the detectives had possession of those photos of Christina Parcell without any clothes on?
Mr. Mello.
That's John Mello?
Yes.
And that is who she was engaging in a child custody dispute with over Ida Mello?
Yes.
Now, finally, Mr. Post, I'm going to ask you, have you ever met Zachary Hughes?
No.
Have you ever talked to Zachary Hughes?
No.
Have you ever corresponded with in any way, shape, or form through email, social media, or the like?
No.
When was the first time you knew who Zachary Hughes was?
When my attorney set a meeting to come see me, and he showed me a picture and said this person was arrested for the murder.
For the murder of Christina Parcell?
That's correct.
And a couple more questions, Mr. Post. You and Christina Parcell were engaged.
Yes,
Did you give her a diamond ring?
I did.
Was she wearing it that day on October 13th, 2021?
Yes.
And on that day, did you provide her or give her any flowers the day before or that day?
No.
Didn't give her any roses or anything like that, did you?
No.
Mr. Post, if you could just answer any questions that the defense counsel asked for you.
All right, cross-examination.
Thank you, Honor. So, Mr. Post, just first question, you just mentioned that you were engaged and that she was wearing the ring. Do you remember telling law enforcement on the day this happened that she wasn't wearing a ring?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay. You don't recall saying that?
No.
You remember, now you're saying you remember seeing her with the ring?
Yes.
Okay. You were also asked if you've been charged with a crime. It's actually 9 charges, is it not?
Correct.
Okay. Ask you about some background questions about yourself. So, how old are you?
69,
What is your date of birth?
12856,
And where are you from?
Ohio.
When did you move to South Carolina?
July of, I think, 89.
What brought you to South Carolina?
Employment.
Are you married?
Was I married at the
Were
time?
you married?
Yes.
And how many times have you been married?
Twice.
Do you have any children?
No.
Okay. How were you making a living in October of 2021?
I was retired, so it was from my investments and interest.
And also from selling a business?
Yes.
Okay. And did you make a lot of money from selling the business?
I don't know what your definition of a lot of money is.
What's your definition? I mean, did you have millions of dollars?
Objection relevant, Your Honor.
All right, so when did you actually meet Christina Parcell?
I met her at her father's cigar shop. Gosh, I can't, 20 years prior.
Okay. And you actually dated for a period of time back then?
Again, that's the definition of date. Yes, we went to lunch or dinner, but it was only a couple of weeks, and that was it.
Okay. And why did you all break up at that time?
It just, wasn't chemistry, and we both had other things to do.
All right, and then you reconnected then in about 2016, isn't that right?
That's correct.
And you began dating again at that time?
Soon after.
Had you seen her much in the years between?
No.
Okay. Had you seen her at all?
Prior 10 years, no, I didn't even hear her name.
Okay. And then you began dating at this time. Now, Ms. Parcell had a daughter at that time, isn't that right?
That's correct.
You've already testified her name was Aida. Is that right?
That's correct.
And how old was Aida when they began dating?
I don't know if I defined it when I dating, but when I saw her for the first time in 2016, I think she was 3.
Okay. And she gave up custody of Aida shortly after y'all started dating?
I don't know the exact date, but she did change the custody arrangement.
And you at this time did not know Aida's father, John Mellon? Correct?
I knew of him because I was told, but no, prior to coming, no, I didn't.
Okay. Prior to meeting or getting back together with Ms. Parcell, you did not
Correct.
know Mr. Mellon? Okay. And did you break up during the period of time between 2016 and 2021?
Yes.
How many times would you say you broke up?
I really don't know. Many,
Okay, more than 5?
maybe not. Somewhere I never counted it.
And that was at least in part because of the turbulence that was caused by the custody battle between Ms. Parcell and John Mello?
It was part of it because it was becoming front and center of her life, so it affected a lot.
Okay, but you would continue to get back together. There was multiple times you broke up.
Eventually, yes.
Yep. And how long have you lived at 24 Rivoli Lane?
7, 8 years.
And you mentioned Ms. Parcell and Ida were living with her sister, Tina, on Canebrake Drive.
That's correct.
Okay, where did they live before that?
There was an apartment off of Woodruff.
Okay, and the three lived together there too?
Yes.
Okay. And did you live with anyone at Rivoli Lane?
I don't understand the question.
Did anyone live with you at Rivoli Lane?
No.
You lived there alone. I guess there was one exception then when Ms. Parcell moved in with you from October 20 until Ida returned?
She didn't really move in. She would stay with me because she always had a house or an apartment that was hers.
Okay. When did you and Ms. Parcell get engaged?
Honestly, don't remember.
Okay. And did you remember getting engaged at least for the second time at the airport, is that right?
That's correct.
And that was when Ms. Parcell returned with Ida?
That's correct.
And there was quite a group around there when you got engaged, right?
That's correct.
Who all was there?
Friends, her parents. You know, some of the friends I knew, some of the friends I didn't.
Okay, and this was at the Greenville-Spartanburg Airport?
That's correct.
Okay, when Ms. Parcell returned from Italy with Ida?
Yes.
You mentioned letting Ms. Parcell use your Lexus. You would help her financially in other ways as well, right?
She used my car when hers was broken, or she needed to get one because she had her own car.
And you would pay her credit card bills sometimes?
Sometimes.
You actually gave her a credit card of your own?
Yes, whenever she was buying for me and buying my groceries, yes.
Okay. Do you recall being able to have power of attorney over her bank account at the Bank of Travelers Rest?
I don't recall giving power of attorney.
You don't recall having her power of attorney?
I don't recall it.
Okay. Now, you had a clone of her phone as well, correct?
That's correct.
So, this phone that you had of hers would keep track of everything that was going on in her phone. In other words, it was an actual clone. You could see her incoming and outgoing emails and texts and all of that. Is that not right?
No, it wasn't an exact clone. There were certain applications that we could see. But it was mainly for her bills and to make sure that she got home at night.
Okay, but you mentioned also you would use an app called Life 360 to keep track of her too, right?
Yes, and that was on my phone.
Okay, so that was on your phone. That wasn't on so the clone phone was for keeping track of what she was doing with her.
It might have been, but I don't remember if it was on that one. Just like I said, she had two phones at several times, hers and mine.
And what methods did you use to communicate back and forth by texting and that sort of thing?
You know, call, text, email.
Okay, do you remember what platform you would use to communicate?
At the end, we were using one called Signal, knowing that her future with Mr. Mello, there was something going to happen, and so we used Signal, which we didn't use very long because it was very difficult to use.
Okay. And you mentioned that Ms. Parcell gave up custody of Ida a few months after y'all started dating?
Yes.
And she gave up custody to John Mello?
That's correct.
And then at some point, she changed her mind and decided she wanted custody, correct?
Yes.
And around how old was Ida when she did that?
When she turned over the custody?
No, when she, I think you already told us that Ida was 3 or 4, I think 3 when she gave up custody.
Yes.
How old was Ida when she tried to get custody back?
I don't recall.
Was it years, months after she gave up custody?
I don't recall the time, I just remember the instances that caused her to do it.
Okay, and that was because of her contentious relationship with Mr. Mello?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when John Mello took Aida to Italy, testified somewhat about that already, but that was around October of 2020, correct?
I think so, but I'm
Does
not
that sound
sure.
right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Does October 2020 sound right?
Yeah, I'd have to get a calendar and work backwards, but yeah.
And you mentioned that when she finally came back, it was in April
Yes.
of 21.
Yes.
And they were in the canebrake house at that point?
You know, I think they were in the apartment and then moved to the canebrake house almost immediately.
Okay. Now, you used the term kidnap. You are aware that John Mello was exonerated for that?
Afterwards,
Right.
but not when he was there. He was found guilty by Italy, the state of Italy, and had to return her.
Okay. Well, maybe we're using distinctions here, but he was found to have to give her over to Christina, but he wasn't found guilty of any crimes.
That I don't know.
He didn't go to jail.
That I don't know.
Okay. But when he came back here, you were aware that he was exonerated for taking Aida to Italy, right?
After Miss Purcell was dead, yes.
Okay, well, that has nothing to do with it. He was
Has
exonerated.
everything to do with it.
He was exonerated for having taken Aida to Italy because he had custody of Aida. Isn't that true?
Ask your question again.
Your objection is outside the scope of his knowledge.
This is what they were asking. So John Mello had custody of Aida when he took her to Italy.
Yes.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean she could be taken out of the country without the mother knowing.
Okay, well, you know the court's exonerated him for that.
But you know that the Hague Agreement returned her.
Okay, well, I'm talking about in South Carolina. So for him taking Aida to Italy, since he had custody, he was exonerated for having taken her to Italy.
Eventually, yes.
Okay. And when he took her to Italy, you and Ms. Parcell spent some time trying to find where they were by looking at Facebook and Google and things like that. Is that right?
The context of what you're saying, I don't agree with, but yes, it was quickly found where he was.
Okay. Well, you can explain the answer if you need to.
Mr. Mello likes to use Facebook, and he posted a picture of his daughter to kind of show off that he had her in Italy. In the background, there was a poster that showed where he was.
Okay. And then at that point is when Ms. Parcell took all the steps that you talked about trying to get her to go back. Correct?
Correct.
And you did mention that you helped her with that.
When I could.
And you were helping pay her legal bills, and I know you had an agreement where she was going to eventually pay you back, but you were giving her money for attorneys.
From times when she needed it because she was working.
Okay. She made 2 trips to Italy, isn't that right?
That's correct.
And the first time she was gone a couple of weeks,
I don't recall being that long, but it was more than a week.
and Lutina, her sister, went with her the first time.
Yes.
And then the second time she went back by herself,
Correct.
and that's when she returned with Aida, and then you proposed to her.
Yes.
Okay, now, I want to ask you a little bit about the packages. So, State's Exhibit number 1 is the one that's dated the 30th of June of 2021. And that's the first one that you received, is that right?
I think so. I just have to look at the dates, but yes, the earliest.
Okay. This was mailed to your house. And there also were some that were mailed to other locations, but intended for you. Is that right?
I don't think it was immediately, no. That was sent like a warning.
Okay. Well, that was sent first. But where was the other one sent that was intended for you?
To my neighbors and to a place that I frequented.
Okay. And that was a cigar bar called Outlands?
Yes.
Okay. The contents of that have been described, you described as some photographs of Ms. Parcell.
Yes.
And you said they were naked photographs, right?
Yes.
Do you recall any of the other materials that were in there?
I think there was like a potential mailing list of where else it was being sent, like a threat.
And do you recall one of the pieces of paper that was sent to you being a website, purportedly from her?
I don't recall it was there, but I was shown that it was.
Okay. And it's a website labeled Escort Advertising and Discussion?
I don't know.
Did you not look at it at that time?
I don't recall, no.
Okay. Were you aware of all of this about her past when?
What are you referring to her past? It was the pictures that Mr. Mello had taken that they were using.
Well, I'm talking about the website.
Same thing on the website. I was told it was the same pictures.
That was what you were told?
That's what I was told.
Okay. Well, the website doesn't have pictures associated with it, right?
No, I don't know.
Okay. Did you read the contents of it?
No.
Why did you not read those? Why did you not read the information that was in the package that was sent to you?
Because I knew it was a threat. He was constantly trying to separate us and get me to not assist her.
One moment, please. How may we approach? Sure.
Jocelyn McInnes.
All right, Ms. McInnes, with whom are you employed?
Right now with Fetch Pet Insurance.
And what did you do back in October of 2021?
I was working at Valley Walk Animal Hospital as practice manager.
And what does a practice manager do?
Just manages day-to-day operations, hiring, firings, inventory, stuff like that.
And where is that practice located?
In Greer, South Carolina.
And on October 13th, 2021, did you have the occasion to interview Christina Parcell?
Yes, I did.
Do you know about what time she arrived and you interviewed her?
It was 8:30 that morning.
And how do you know that?
I did watch the video footage, verifying it, but I also had it on my calendar from back then to verify too.
So, so the actual interview was interviewed from inside y'all's cameras?
Yes, it was.
And you went back and reviewed that video?
Yes, I did.
And so what time did Christina Parcell arrive to the veterinary clinic?
Right around 8:30.
All right. And what was she interviewing for?
For a veterinary technician role.
And what does a vet technician do?
Basically like what a nurse does for a doctor. Just draws blood, vaccines, stuff like that.
And about what time did that interview conclude?
She left at 8:47.
That's all I have for this witness.
Anything in cross? Just very briefly, Ms. McInnes, is that right?
Yes.
Just a couple of questions for you. Was that a full-time position that she was interviewing for?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Were you aware that she was already employed?
Yes, I was at the time.
Okay.
That was one of the questions I asked her.
Okay. Do you know why she was looking for another job?
I didn't ask her that.
Okay. But it was a full-time position that she was looking for?
Yes.
All right. That's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor, and she can be released from subpoena. Anything else?
No, Your Honor.